Meet Olga Shumylo, a woman who has lived what feels like several lifetimes, each one building on the last in the most unexpected ways. Picture this. At 31, she's running Ukraine's top policy think tank, advising deputy prime ministers on European integration, flying between Brussels and Washington as a Carnegie Scholar. She's the rising star everyone's watching, until life throws her the ultimate curveball. Her university English professor used to joke with ambitious international relations students, "Learn English, girls. You'll end up marrying diplomats and following them around the world." They all laughed. Well, guess who ended up living that prediction? But here's where Olga's story gets interesting. Instead of losing herself in diplomatic spouse life, she did what she's always done. She started asking questions. Big ones. Why do diplomatic families struggle the way they do? How does constant moving affect identity? What really happens behind those embassy walls? Miss Olga, welcome to this podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy we are finally doing this. I need people to know that we reconnected this year, sometime this year, right? Yes, it was this year, early this year in 2025. And we both had transitions in our lives, and I reached out to you and we met, had coffee, and we've had 1 or 2 meetings since then. And with all that I've read in the intro, and just having you here first, I mean, we should be clapping for ourselves.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
That you're finally here. But you look so good.
Thank
so
you.
What's happening in your life now?
Well, I have a lot of activities.
Yes.
And I have to say that sometimes I have to remind myself that I am just one person doing a big job.
Yeah.
And that differs from my life in offices where I would have teams and I would rely on a lot of people. So with that humility of being the person who works alone, I do have very big plans for the people that I'm trying to help now, the diplomatic spouses and diplomats. And I have to say, I'm very excited to be here, but also I'm very excited for the job that I am now rolling out.
Yes, the transition has been quite something, but we'll get there. Mm-hmm. So, someone listening to the intro that, just ran before this conversation started, one will think like, oh, wow, like you have done so much. So let's go to the beginning, the start. You growing up, and you've told me that story about, your parents and the need for excellence and having good grades in school. So let's go to that story. I want us to set that up so that people know, it starts from somewhere. There's background, there's foundation. Mm-hmm. What was that? Your life growing up as a young Olga?
I have to say, partly it was not that easy because I was living in the Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was not a good thing. It was the occupation of my country and quite a few other countries. But luckily I was born almost at the end of the Soviet Union, so it collapsed when I was 13. And I have to say that brought a lot of possibilities for both my family, for for my friends, for myself. We could start speaking our language. We could do a lot more in a country that was ours. And that was probably this transition that I experienced early in my life did affect me quite a lot in a positive way, that coming back to oneself, as I said, speaking the language, doing things that are good for my country. My parents did a lot for my country. So that was the background against which I was growing. And I have to say, I was always a researcher. I was always asking a question, why? And I think that sometimes it would irritate people, but I know that I wanted to go down to the issue, and that was my reality. Right. So I always would be fascinated with the world. I would be fascinated with people. My parents would take me travel, and I was very blessed to have a rich childhood, I would say, in terms of books, in terms of art, in terms of music. Sometimes I would not appreciate it at that time, but now I see, looking back, that it was a very big blessing to have the parents that I had. But they were tough. And I have to say that sometimes my mom now asks me, why are you so hooked about the marks for university that I just finished another one? And I'll be like, I wish you would say that to me when I was 7 or 9 or 15, because then excellence was expected. And I would say it had a positive side, because obviously it took me places where I would not be taken if I wouldn't strive for excellence. But at the same time, sometimes it was overwhelming. So now I have to remind myself that I don't have to do everything in a perfect way. Sometimes I can do just good.
But that's really hard, isn't it? For someone who's used to perfection from such a young age, instilled in you by your parents, by the society, I think, you're expected to perform, and you find that all the steps of your life, there's been a level of perfection, a level of high-class excellence, the demands you had on yourself. You've brought up education. I remember early this year, you had exams. We couldn't meet because you had exams. What were you studying?
I was actually studying, I say it's my last master's, and I promise next one will have to be PhD, because masters I've done quite many.
Okay.
So this one was global mental health, and I was writing a master thesis which was about the diplomatic spouses and how it is to travel around the world the first time, and how it affects your identity, your couple dynamics. So I was very invested in these studies, because when I started moving around the world, and I loved psychology, but I was trying to understand, in Europe it works one way, but then I moved to Asia, and I realized that in Asia, psychology works in a different way, because you have different cultural norms, you have different societal structures. So actually psychology has to adapt to that. And how does it adapt? Then I came to Africa, to Kenya, and I volunteered in, for instance, a shelter for victims of domestic and sexual violence. And again, psychological training I had to adapt to the culture, to the norms, to the expectations of the people here. Yeah. And for that reason, I went to study, because I want to understand how to adapt Western concept of psychology around the world, how to make it work. Not just to come and say, I have the tools, they have to work on you, but to say more, I have the tools, let's see how they can work for you, what will work, what will not work, how I as a psychologist need to modify myself, not to just take for granted the tools that I have. So it was very important for me to do that master program. And also I did dedicate my master thesis, as I said, to the people, to the first posters for the diplomatic spouses who go first time. Because I have to say, it is a very privileged group, at least it is considered to be. And at the same time, these are young men and women who are professionals, who actually moved to follow their partner who happens to be a diplomat. So they move across the world, they have no job, they have a new life. Adapting is not easy. And unfortunately, nobody studied the first posting and how it affects you. So I jumped on the opportunity, I did interviews, was beautiful. This time it were women. So I did the interviews, I wrote the paper, and based on that, I will do more work to tailor help for them based on how they are affected. So it was extremely important for me. But as I said, it will be my last master's. I'm eyeing one PhD program, but I'm saying myself sometimes I need to probably give rather than study, so more practical.
We'll see about it. I have a feeling a year from now will be Dr. Olga Shumylo.
No, it takes about 5 to 7 years.
Oh, so but knowing you're just like...
No. That's what I'm also learning in this period of life, that I don't need to cram everything very fast.
Yeah.
I actually want to enjoy life a lot more, and that's what I'm learning as well over the last year.
So you want to enjoy life a bit more? So,
I do.
In which ways?
I have to say, to give myself time to slow down, because life is very fast, and sometimes there are life situations like my country is attacked by the neighboring country in a very brutal way. So for instance, the reflex I have is to help and do a lot, however much I can, to contribute to the victory of my country. But at the same time, I know that if I only do the work and I don't take time to just breathe, I will not be very productive and very good. So that's the extreme, maybe when the need is very strong in my heart to help. But also helping my clients. Sometimes I need to say, sorry guys, I need a break. I need to take a week off, go somewhere, just maybe the forest, maybe the seaside, just to be and to feel and to try food and to meet friends. Have slow time, because life is too fast and I don't want it to finish too fast. So I do want to savor a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll come to that, because that's quite the opposite of what your life has been the last couple of years.
That's true.
Yes, so tying that to what your university professor said, you know, that quote I just read at the start of the podcast, and you all laughed. What's that quote?
The quote was that I was already, I think half of our class were female students of international relations, but it was so before that men were the majority in international relations. So in our class, the professor used to say, study English, because you will be married to diplomats and you'll have to travel around the world, and you will have to help your partner represent, your husband represent. And we laughed because when we were going to study international relations, we were fascinated by I don't know, international relations, by foreign affairs, by countries, by disarmament process, by peace building, mediation. So actually we were interested in subjects. We were not eyeing for husbands. But, and I have to say, to my admiration, quite a lot of my classmates, female classmates, became ambassadors of Ukraine. They became very high-level experts in different fields. So actually, I'm very happy to see that what the professor was thinking, and she was old-school lady, unfortunately, that it didn't come through. And I have to say that even for me, even if I became a diplomat's spouse, I was never settled for just that role, because it's one of the roles that I had, but I always wanted a lot more. And I have to say, life is a lot more. And every country that I visited and I stayed for, and in each country I stayed for 4 years, it was always my call to go out and meet people who don't know that I belong to the diplomatic bubble. In Thailand, I had great artists I was friends with. In Kenya, I have people from all walks of life also who, like me, outside of the bubble. In Moldova, I had my colleagues and psychologists with whom I spent wonderful 4 years, both studying and working. So, in fact, everywhere I go, I would like to feel life as it is for people who live there. And that, I think, helps me also feel at home so much more than just living in a... So coming back to my professor, I think I would probably tell her that yes, we can become diplomatic spouses, but it will not be defining us, because it's just one of many roles that we can have.
Okay. You brought up something there that I would want for you to give us a peek into. Diplomatic bubble. What's inside the bubble? This episode is in partnership with Novotel Nairobi Westlands.
A lot of good intentions. Obviously, we have to understand that foreign affairs, it is about connection between countries. Yeah. So one country sends a team to work in another country to help build economic ties, political ties, cultural ties, student exchange. So in that sense, these are the people who come, the diplomats. They are the people who come to help build these ties. At the same time, there is another group of people around the embassy, which are the spouses. And very often, they don't choose to be in the bubble. They choose a person who happens to be a diplomat. And I have to say that while I'm interested from my first education, I'm interested in international relations and country-to-country contacts, I have to say I did get fascinated by who are these spouses? Where do they come from? What do they eat for breakfast? How do they feel about being on a posting, not having a job, not having an income, having only the title a spouse of, because that's unfortunately how often they are presented. You are a spouse of, and nobody will ask you, what do you like? How do you feel about being in this country? What do you do in your free time? What makes you fascinated? What makes you tick? So I am interested in that layer, and I have to say that layer, you would be surprised how much beauty, education, grit, strength, kindness you have among the spouses. But it's all covered with smiles very often, because that's what you can show. Nobody is interested at the reception to know how you feel or to know what's your hobby, what's your expectation from this country. So you have to, in a way, the diplomatic world, when you meet socially, it's very often very formal and very beautiful and very, I would say, pretty. And at the same time, there is a lot more happening in the hearts of people who keep the smiles, because sometimes their children don't adapt well, so they struggle. Sometimes they may not click with the country they are post. I mean, we are not all, easy to adapt, so sometimes people don't feel good in the country. And but you cannot talk about that. So there are a lot of things happening underground that I'm fascinated about, and I want to explore, and I want to help people also talk about themselves. But the foreign affairs, I would say, very straightforward, country to country, trying to build links, and that's what diplomats are doing.
I'll tell you what, so looking from the outside in, and you just, give an example of a diplomatic reception, you're celebrating your national day or some day, some public holiday. So from the outside looking in, it looks like it's so perfect. You have it all together, and sometimes also it could appear snobbish or standoffish. So when I hear you speak like this, my mind goes like, what? So, and it's not everybody. It's some people kind of feels like there's a wall between them and us. So you're saying that the best you can do is smile, find out my name, what I do, but you can't just talk to me and say, I don't know what I'm doing here. You can't tell me. Can you even maybe perhaps share that with the people in your bubble, so to speak? Does that happen?
First of all, let me say this, that when it looks perfect, it is actually perfect, because there is a lot of work put by the diplomats, by the local staff, by the beautiful spaces where the diplomats do things. So in a way, the idea is to make it look as beautiful as possible. And in that setting, I have to say, for diplomats, it makes it easier to also represent, to build connections. It's part of a decor that has been going on for centuries, so that didn't change. And sometimes I say that world is like 19th, 18th century, balls and everything. And that's part of the diplomatic life.
Okay.
But the spouses is a different thing, because they are there to support their partner. They don't have really a formal role. They do play a lot of role. They do help people-to-people contacts. Sometimes they can build bridges that diplomats may not in some countries. So they also stand behind the diplomats. So they do a lot. The only problem is that nobody asks, how do you feel? And very often, it is not the place or not the people that you can share. Because the expectation is that you will be always fine. It's like a politician's spouse. You have to be shiny, you have to smile, you have to be always welcoming, you have to care about the drink that the guests will be having, that everyone is happy.
Yeah.
But you are not supposed to be human at the same time. So you kind of have to hold everything inside. And sometimes it gets heavy, because people are different, and people are alive, and people have feelings, and people may not feel excited about going out and smiling tonight. Maybe they feel like snuggling in a blanket at home with a book. But sometimes they don't have a choice. So the question is also, The face that everyone is keeping, it's not the problem. The problem is that there is no outlet where the spouses can actually talk to each other, to their partners sometimes, to their friends, because there is a lot of shame, there is a lot of I have to be perfect, I have to always manage, but it's not human to always manage. Sometimes we have to collapse, sometimes we have to not want to see people, sometimes we may not want to smile.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So it's also how much, what I noticed quite often, that the peer pressure from spouses, when one is performing perfectly, doing the most beautiful table or the beautiful room, and the best guests, the others feel like, you know, we have to deliver as well. And sometimes, you know, it's not possible. So for me, the challenge is that you can do the beautiful part, but you also have to have an outlet where you can actually be human. You can have friends who will like you just because you are not the spouse of, but just because you're you, because they are fascinated with how you are as a person.
Yeah.
And where you will be understood. That's why, as a psychologist, I put a lot of effort giving that space for spouses, because I believe that they can enjoy the beauty of the diplomatic world, but at the same time they have to have a space where they can grieve the losses, the job, the visibility, the interest, the ease of, you know, living in your own country. So a lot of saying, my friend gave a beautiful quote to me recently, which I keep using with a very grateful heart. She said, diplomatic life is a journey of 1,000,000 gains and 1,000,000 losses. And if you think of it, it is indeed 1,000,000 gains, because I would not be in Kenya if I wouldn't be brought by someone's job. But at the same time, I lost my friends who were in other countries. I lost the feeling of home for a while. I lost the feeling of who I am, because every country you come, you feel a different person. You cannot just, you know, be the same person.
Yeah.
The country changes you very much. So the gains and the losses, they have to be valued equally.
So it's zero sum.
It's always a balance, but sometimes when we only see the shiny, glossy, beautiful picture, we forget that there are losses that these people have to be able to support their partner.
So when you speak of spouses, we are speaking also about men. That some men come also in support of their women who are appointed ambassadors. And we're not just talking about the Kenya picture, just saying like it's a universal context. It's not a problem, it's a context. So when you get married to this man or to this woman, and you know they grow up the ranks, as hopefully the spouse does also, by the time you're posted by your government to go represent, say, in a country like Kenya, because this is where we are, the spouse is aware that yes, we're moving. And yes, there could be excitement that, wow, new country, especially a country like this, like, oh, wow, you know, because there's some countries that would be like, oh, my gosh. But a country like this, wow, we're moving, yes, yes, yes. So we land, the spouse goes now to the office, the embassy, or, you know, starts the official duties. And this other spouse, what is their work? And just paint the picture, at least the first couple of months, because it means you're not coming with your job. As he or she has, you've landed, you have a home to run. What is this expected of you? First, by your spouse. Second, I don't know, by who else? Because I would imagine it's a pair, it's a partnership, isn't it? Like you've spoken, the two of you have talked, you've decided, okay, I'll be doing this as you do what? Is that usually a conversation most people have? And if you do, do you land here and things change? Things are thrown up in the air and just things change. Like you talked about adaptability, adjusting. And in all of this, identity shifts. Who do you become for the new postings or the new assignments who are in the midst of all of this as a diplomat spouse? Nulink is a renewable energy products company with 20 years of experience in the renewable energy industry. Nulink designs and builds its own products and also works with partners to build complete solutions. Nulink covers a wide range of products including solar panels, inverters, battery packs, storage cabinets, charging piles, EV chargers, diesel generators and UPS. Nulink focuses on the R&D and production of new energy products. By providing customers with leading safe and efficient energy storage solutions, Nulink accelerates the process of energy reform and helps more people realize economic and social value. Nulink's mission is to provide sustainable energy for the future through innovative storage solutions. For more details, please contact Chris at nulinkhk.com.
So when the spouses move from 50-50 division of labor on everything back at home to almost 90-10 ratio, that comes very heavy on spouses because of course your partner is at work doing amazing things, fascinating, and you have to take care of everything, most of the times in foreign language, in a culture and social setting you have no idea about. Even if you visited sometimes the country where you are now posted, it's not the same thing. So I have to say that the first half a year or up to a year, it's a very heavy time for the spouses. And sometimes when we look at people who just go for studies or for work themselves, there is like a bell curve of adaptation. So you are fascinated with the country, you love it, then you start missing home, you start getting a bit tired with the country, the new country. So but for diplomatic spouses, sometimes it comes from you want to be excited, but then it's too much of household, too much of learning, too much of being on your own. So the challenge is we board the plane together to come to a fascinating posting.
Yeah.
And then one is on a rocket,
Yeah.
and one is on a very slow speed train somewhere down. So how do we go back as partners? And it takes a while for the spouses to adjust to a new posting. And again, when I'm making this generalization, we have to remember that every person is different, every couple is different.
Yeah.
And they will have a different agreement at the beginning, they will react differently, some are adapting easier, some are adapting more difficult. But it may be happening to quite a lot of spouses. Then comes the foreign ministry. To their credit, I have to say, compared to the 19th or 20th century, it's so much better now for the spouses. There is almost no expectation in quite a lot of countries that you will have to perform some duties. So quite often you're just told, just be, at home, support your partner, support your children, find something fun to do, explore the country within the limits, of course, of, the diplomatic possibilities. But you're free to be yourself. And that takes away a lot of pressure to help to perform. And I think that it's also changing with the spouses, that diplomats themselves see it's their job more, and then the spouse can be on their own. The only problem is that with that goes away connections, which is not very easy to make when you come to a new country. You will not meet a lot of fascinating people on the first few months. So it takes time to build that network, to know people, to feel welcome, to feel connected. And very often the spouses are constrained to the household chores and to running the family, to organizing things on their own. And from that perspective, I would say sometimes I would want the ministries to give a little bit more, because it's very difficult when you're in a foreign country, but you don't have a purpose of your own, to find that purpose, to build the connections, to feel embedded and to feel connected. So the foreign ministries are not putting pressure, and that's a good thing.
Right.
But now we need to create a little bit more space for the spouses to be also having more purpose in this country. Again, it does change when the diplomat goes up the ladder, because there is more visibility for a diplomat, and then more I wouldn't even say expectation from the spouse, but perhaps expectation from a diplomat that the spouse would be stepping in a lot more. And we can see that ambassador spouses really do a lot. And sometimes I did a study and I found out that sometimes it was up to 45 hours a week that ambassador spouses would put in to supporting their husband or wife. But it depends on a couple, it very much depends on a country you represent, or the diplomat represents. But the question is also what's happening in the couple. And I also get fascinated that moving from one point to another, we have two parallel experiences. How do we bring the couple together? Because I have to say, posting is not an easy thing. Even, as I said, a million gains, you're a fascinating country, meeting new people, visiting places, and at the same time, you don't have your natural support system. You don't have your parents, you don't have your friends, you don't have places you can go and wind down. So it's a lot of pressure on the couple. And as a therapist, I'm fascinated about these pressures and how to help the couple not have a survival experience, but to actually enjoy each other, enjoy the experiences, have quite similar experiences to the extent possible. So it's a very complex, issue.
Yeah. So, 45 hours a week, that's basically like a full-time job.
Yes.
Every single day is a full-time job because, ideally people work 8 hours a day. So when you say...
And sometimes it's more.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more. Because if you count all the receptions and dinners you have to attend, it's after work hours as well. So I was sometimes saying that if spouses would be paid, and they would be counted hours, like you run a residence, you organize stuff, you prepare something for events, then you attend an evening event, that will be more than 8 hours a day, and they would have a lot of overtime. But unfortunately, I would say it's a public work, so you support your partner, who happens to be a diplomat, and then you do good for their country. Sometimes it's not even your country.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're a third country national, you come from a different country than a diplomat. So you have to also take in, speaking of identities, it's a very complex issue because who are you if you're no longer having a job? And I have to say, for many spouses, it is a very big challenge. On the one hand, we all identify through professional life. You are a TV presenter, I am a psychologist, somebody is a librarian, sometimes somebody is a writer. But if you don't have an activity, you can be a mother, you can be a father, but that's a role that cannot overwhelmingly fill a person. So very often, not having a job and being considered a spouse of, or presented as a spouse of, makes it very difficult for spouses, because this question of who am I, it's very daunting and it's very heavy, and you have to think about it in a country, in a new setting. So sometimes people get lost, and that's why my project that I started, which is called Following Without Disappearing, I want the spouses to have a full life even if they don't have a job. Because it is a limitation that diplomatic world puts on spouses. In most of the countries, you cannot work. You can work in some spaces, but it's very difficult because the jobs are limited. Sometimes professions are not really transferable. So if you are a doctor in one country, you cannot come to another country and be a doctor because you have licensing, you have insurance, you have other things. So the problem is that very often spouses cannot work, and that's a challenge. But on the other hand, they don't stop being valuable humans. And very often with spouses, we speak about finding the meaning in their life, maybe through studies, maybe through starting a new project that they were delaying, maybe doing charity, but not just doing it as a sidekick, but filling themselves in. And it's not an easy issue of who you are if you're following.
I totally get it, because I think out of all the a million losses, so there's a million gains. We see that, we understand that. One of the biggest issues for me would be who to trust. In a new country, running a new household, maybe you don't have friends here, obviously, or maybe you have one or two, who knows. But then who do you trust? Who do you bring near you, knowing that you can pour your heart to, and you know that whatever it is you tell them will not get out there? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Absolutely.
So the people to trust. So my family may not be here. The friends, I left them, wherever we came from. You could only maybe talk or FaceTime, too much or too long in a week. But then who do you invite to your home? Who do you tell, I didn't feel like waking up today, or I don't feel like combing my hair today? How do you create those intimate friendships with people in a new country?
First of all, I say don't lose the connection with home, because the family and friends will have a difficulty understanding the life that the diplomatic spouse is living, because they haven't lived that, they don't know. So trying to keep ties with those who can mildly be there for you and you can be for them, because those connections still feed us. They still are the natural fallback. So I often say to spouses, keep at least 1-2 people from the family, from friends, back home, because they are still your safe base. And don't, however much you travel, however difficult the time zones, sometimes I have friends, we have coffee together. Somebody is in Bhutan, and I have coffee in Kenya, and my friend has coffee in Bhutan, and we chat. And that's the connection that we both work on, so the old connections. Second, big issue about trust, but I would say it's actually not that bad and not that difficult. Yes, we come to a new country, and yes, spouses learn a lot and they try to find out. But in every country I have been, there will always be people with whom you can click.
Okay.
The only challenge is that diplomatic spouses usually have 3 to 4 years. And in natural life, if you think of your own life, you build these connections that you have with your friends throughout years.
Yeah.
It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You didn't trust them overnight. You didn't feel like connected and close and sharing everything. So
Yeah.
it takes time. So sometimes the spouses are having it difficult because at the beginning, when they need friends most, they only have a few of those at home. But trusting is not an issue. For me, the issue would be allowing those friendships to happen, because it's also, we have to understand, if you have been on a posting maybe 3-4 times, you gain friends, you lost them, you gain friends, you lost them, and then next time you come to a posting, I sometimes hear spouses saying, we've done this so many times, it feels so heavy to every time lose those people, because it's still difficult to keep connections when we are in Australia and somewhere in Kenya. So how do, and I still say to them, keep friendship, like make friendships, even if it means losing and feeling the pain.
Ooh.
It's still worth it. And I like this metaphor. When I was on my first posting, I remember I love gardening and I love growing things and I love seeing life coming through with blooming and greenery. And I always wanted to have a magnolia tree. And then I found out, it grows for 3 years, it will start blooming like in 3.5, 4 years. So I was like, it's my first, second year, it will not bloom by the time I leave, so I didn't do it. I regret it until now. So every time I come somewhere, even if I have it for a day, that magnolia blooming, even if I see some kind of sprouts, I plant it, because I will enjoy it for one day and it's really worth it. The same with friendships for me. Yes, we will say goodbye at some stage, and we know it will happen. But the beauty of being connected, and it's not always to pour the heart out. Sometimes it's just laugh together.
Yeah.
Sometimes to do crazy things, explore the city, explore the country. Sometimes it's just maybe pouring the heart, saying like, you know, I really don't feel like having a makeup and going out and pretending I'm happy. Just sometimes I just feel dull and I just want to watch a TV series.
Yeah.
So these things, we do meet people on postings. The only thing is to allow that to happen. And then there is another layer. People in a country that the diplomatic spouses are posted in. Allowing these people to come to your life, not staying with the bubble. And I think that the young spouses are very often good at not staying just with the familiar, with beautiful, with kind of closeted and, you know, polished, but just living the life. And I think that that gives them also possibility to meet a lot more people with whom you don't need. Like, as a human being, you don't always keep your guard up. You can be yourself. And I think that allowing that life to come in is what the challenge is.
What has it taken you to get to this level of just wisdom, understanding, and being open to what life brings you every day?
I don't think there is one factor. I would say therapy definitely helps to explore yourself, to understand how you work. And again, not because I'm a therapist, but because I do believe that going inwards and reflecting is probably the biggest gift humans have. But at the same time, I also know that therapy doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes it can be church, sometimes it can be philosophy, sometimes it can be books. I was brought up by a father who read a lot, and he still reads a lot. And the books that he introduced me, he would read me authors that I was not ready for at that time, but they sink in, and they were about humans, about life, about how things are. And I think that that's what also shaped me quite a lot earlier, before I met psychology, then visiting countries. And I have to say, the people I have met, each of them, the friends, the people who meant a lot to me, they also shaped me. So I think that it's fascination with the world that I naturally had, but at the same time letting these people come and affect me, change me. Obviously, living in 3 continents, it has to change me. Also, having the experiences I was given, they changed me. So I have to say and the road is just starting. I don't think I arrived yet. I think I am more happy with where I am now, and I'm more at peace with myself, with people I have in my life. But it's still the beginning. So I'm hoping that it will, the wisdom will keep coming. I hope the people will keep coming. And also, I don't expect to stay the same for the rest of my life.
Yes, because then what you're talking about speaks to evolution, you know, and we are always evolving. Sometimes you'll meet people who knew you 20 years ago, and you know, they say this as though it's a bad thing. Oh, you've changed. You never used to be like that. And I've learned to say, actually, yes, thank you. That is a compliment. Because then it would be a tragic if I was still the same person 20 years ago, even 2 weeks ago.
That's true.
Because when you wake up to who you are and accept the parts of you that even you recognize are ugly, and I know as a therapist, you know, you will speak to what ugly?
Things we don't like. Things we don't like.
Then that's an evolution. So we take this as such a big word, but evolution is where you wake up and say, yeah, I'm actually not that person, or this experience has come my way, and my reaction is different compared to how it would have been maybe even a week ago. And I know we attribute it to, oh yeah, you're just growing old, so you know you're no longer, but it's just a level of awareness which I want you to speak to, and tie it to also the work that you're doing now as a therapist first for couples. The first time couples, first time posting, there's the way you phrased it. Those who've been posted for the first time and, you know, yes, you've come with stars in your eyes and then reality hits. And you start judging yourself, blaming yourself, losing your voice, wondering who am I, you're frazzled. And especially even things like finding the best schools for your kids, and all of those things. How do you tell that spouse that, you know, it's gonna be okay, you know, just breathe, you know, take it easy? Like what does your training center on, if that makes sense? I know I've asked quite a loaded question.
I would say this is not just for diplomatic spouses, but for myself first and for everyone, is self-compassion. I have to say it's a big word, it sounds very loud, but it's actually very simple, very small things every day. Whenever life takes you, if you don't have self-compassion, it will be brutally difficult. If you have self-compassion, you can separate, this is the environment I'm in, these are the people may not be good for me, I may not be performing at my best, but I am valuable inside. And for that took me probably all my life to arrive. That self-compassion is the must. It's like a base. If you don't have it, it's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult because actually we change every day. We wake up every day and there is something shifting in us. But if we have a core, which the belief that we are good as people, we are valuable, we are meaningful, we are worth the love, we deserve all the love that life brings to us and all the care, is going to be easier. So I have to say to what you said about friends, yes, there are friends who notice how we change. And for some it's uncomfortable because sometimes we just are not very comfortable people. We care more about ourselves, we defend our boundaries better. And they notice that we are not as maybe perfect friends as before. But then I also value friends who know us when we were young. And unfortunately this year I lost one of my very dear friends from school, but the person who knew me and who would see me now, and she would see all the things that changed in me, but she would see that core that didn't change. That kindness, the fascination with life, the fascination with people, sometimes, you know, some silliness, so all these things, the core did not change. And I think that also arriving to that yes, we will make different choices every day, but I want to keep believing in that goodness and also taking care of myself and not putting it on everyone, but just being the person whom I needed in my childhood, throughout my teenage years, someone who would be my biggest cheerleader. And I think that self-compassion is what I teach not only spouses, but all the clients who come to me. Not having harsh statements about whatever thought is very negative about you, not good, not allowed in the room. And it doesn't mean that people will become, you know, boundaryless and will behave badly. No, it actually shuts down all that noise, which doesn't motivate us. No flower grew if you shouted it. The flower grew when you water it. It's as simple as that. I love garden because it gives you metaphors that if you start shouting at flowers saying, grow up faster, shine better, be brighter, the flower will be like, no, I'm not even coming out of the ground. But if you plant, if you talk to them kindly, it will bloom. So self-compassion would probably be number one for if we talk about diplomatic spouses or if we talk about people who actually want to have a good, kind life.
Yeah. I like what you said. So when you're doing a therapy session, like you say, anything negative about yourself, leave that.
Yes.
I really like that.
Because it doesn't help.
Do we do that to ourselves a lot? Like
we do. If you sit in the room for an hour, most of the time will be the chewing gum the mind kind of brings of familiar things, but half of it will be very harsh words. Again, these are the words that are not ours. We heard them at school, we heard them at home, we heard them sometimes from neighbors, from friends who were not very good people to us. But, and this kind of baggage we carry thinking this is helpful, this helps us be better people. And I'm not saying, again, if we think of sport people, athletes for instance, yes, they have to mobilize, yes, they have to focus on the prize, on the goal, but if they call themselves names, I don't think they'll run faster. They may, but their heart will be struggling. So how do you, this is the big question for me, how do you do what you want to do? How do you achieve things without bashing yourself, without criticizing? How do you do it through support and motivation and encouragement rather than punishment? And I think it's, but the negative voices in our heads, unfortunately, is, I wouldn't say 90% of the problem, but 80% of the problem. Once you calm them down, once you ask them to leave the room, you will have a lot more to breathe, to explore, to get fascinated. I often say, don't judge, get fascinated, get curious about yourself. Because if I say, I'm incapable of doing this interview, but if I get curious, can I do this interview? Can I talk to you in a way that will be interesting for you and your audience?
Yes.
That's a challenge. That's something that I can, but if I say, you know, you're bad at interviews, you're not a good public speaker, you're gonna be this and that, how does it help me? It doesn't.
Yeah.
But we all have these voices, so I would say that it's something to be aware of and something to try to stop when they are affecting us.
So who heals the therapist?
Other therapists, friends, people close to us, nature, animals. I mean, it's not a one man's job or one woman's job. I have to say, sometimes in Kenya particularly, my place of healing was Karura Forest. And I have to say, I was very grateful to one of my Kenyan friends who brought me to Karura. She was running a running group, and I joined, and then somehow I found myself 5 days a week in the morning going for a walk or a run in Karura with other friends. And I have to say, being in that nature, in that wilderness, at the same time is quite safe and organized, so it's kind of like a forest, but the best version of a forest where you cannot get lost. I did get lost at the beginning. I cried and I tried to find the parking, but at the same time, this nature was so overwhelming and so accepting. Whether I would come without makeup, whether I would come as a spouse of, whether I would come as a lost person, whether I would come in whatever mood, the forest would be there and he would take me. And sometimes it was probably the best healing I had. But I would also say people. Yeah. People who love us, people who take us, people who see that beautiful inner world that sometimes we're hiding because it's, as you say, it's safer sometimes to keep the face and not show. But people who can see through, I think this is important. Yeah.
Let's go back to the negative voices in our heads.
You like the topic.
Yes, I do like the topic.
It is very fascinating for me as a therapist.
Isn't it? Because sometimes, because it's so deeply embedded in our subconscious, we forget you're even doing it. So we'll be sitting here and I'm saying, oh, I don't look good in this, maybe I should try this hair. As opposed to, wait, there could be something good in this hair. It could be all over the place. But, you know, if Sharon just touches it a bit, it could work. Or today I woke up so grumpy, I can't believe. No, it's an example.
Example, okay, because I'm a morning person, so almost every morning I'm super excited. Which is I sometimes criticize myself for that I'm too happy.
You're too happy. So how do we? So what's the practice? I think I want to go like to the practicals. Like in your case, so you wake up every morning, you're excited.
Almost every morning. Let's do reality check. Almost every morning.
Okay. So what are these practices? Because to somebody listening, it'll just sound like, okay, theory. Okay, fine. Let me quiet the voices in my head. But there are practices, there are things that we can do, and maybe if we do them consistently, then become a habit, and they overwrite that which has been, you know, deeply embedded in our subconscious as negative. So if you could share with us, even if it's like 3 practices, and when to do them, so that the people who are keen on just, that shift, a mindset, emotional, I think maybe psychological shift, have something to work with. Yes, based on your the mini masters you have done, an upcoming PhD in 5 years.
So first I would say entertain the thought that the voices are not yours. So accept the idea, and that's a bit more rational, that you have to believe that these voices are not yours, they are not good, and you have to hunt for them. Like, you have to pay attention. And that's a belief that many of my clients are surprised when I say these are not your thoughts. If you would talk to a friend who would be in a similar situation, you would never say, oh, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you so this and that? You will be like, what's happening? Tell me more. Can I help you? Like, this is not about you. So you would be a lot more supportive of a person. So entertain the thought that these are not very helpful thoughts and they have to be out. Second, remember that it's a practice for life. Not expect you try it a few times and then for the rest of your life you're cured. It will be difficult and not impossible. So it is possible. Sometimes I say to my clients, first start noticing when you're doing it. Like you have a bad thought, you don't stop it, you just observe. And that I would say sometimes mindfulness helps, that you observe. You don't try to erase it immediately. Sometimes for a few months you will just observe, oh, this is a critical voice. This is an unnice thing I just said about myself, or this voice said about me. And I think that giving yourself this grace of just noticing.
Okay.
The next phase would be when you notice, you can say, this is not true. Like, I don't know, give me 5 points of why it is true. And then the voice will be silent, because usually the voice is just like a broken record that will say nasty things to you. It's not the record that is supposed to help you progress. It is a voice that was maybe, like sometimes parents say, study well because you will be no one.
Yeah.
Because they are afraid that we will be no one. They want us to earn, to have decent life. So they kind of care.
Yeah.
But things they say, they stick to us.
Yes.
And so you can try to counter that voice. And this is a practice. It's not even like you can do it morning, evening. It's a practice whenever you notice that the negative something about you is coming out. You notice it. If you can catch it there, you can say, this is not true.
Okay.
And you just move on with life. And the more you do that, the more the voice will start coming down, because he will see it doesn't have effect on you. But it is a practice for years. So I would say that when the best time to start? Now. Like, if you learn about the voices that are negative and not moving you towards anything good, start observing now. I notice that sometimes I'm sitting and the voice is saying, like, my leg is not fit, like organized in a nice way, maybe I'm moving my hands too much, but I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. It makes me me. And at the same time, if the voice would be saying something very, very nasty, I would probably have to pause the interview and say, I'm sorry, I need a minute. And I would be like, no, I don't need that voice.
I see.
I really want to talk to Catherine, and I really want to tell my story.
Yes.
And my story is valuable, so please don't tell me. And again, it may look a little bit crazy that, voices in your head, but we all have them.
Yes.
And they do harm us in a very bad way.
Yeah. What do you speak about the voices that you brought back, the generational aspect of our parents, the things they said to us, and we believe them? So, when parents say, you're so stupid, why can't you be like your brother? So the comparison aspect.
Very heavy.
So how we live our lives comparing ourselves to others. What's the detrimental effect? Is that the word? Yes. Yeah, you're the one who studied English. Yes. So
didn't help me much.
Psychologist,
so much better. Yeah.
So what does that do especially when you live your life that way, because then you always look at your brother or your sister as the God. The God complex checks in. No, not the God complex. No, they are the God. So the one below them, whatever complex is called. So the people who compare themselves, and I would imagine, and I know this is away from, maybe the diplomatic work and stuff, but you're a psychologist.
Yes.
So that whole comparison we do, and you see it everywhere, not just in Africa. If your neighbor just built their home, you want to build a bigger home. If your neighbor just bought this car, you want a bigger car. If your neighbor's wife lost weight, you will take your wife through thick and thin for her to lose weight, because
your husband.
Or your husband.
Depends.
That too.
Let's not be very one-sided.
Maybe gender sensitive. Yes, your spouse or your partner. And yet you don't know that you're doing it. For some, they know because it's they want to be better, because and you don't realize it's a voice, it's a record that's been playing out. So we soothe that with, no, I'm just striving to be the best. I'm just striving to be the best, and we've become comfortable with, no, I'm just working towards excellence. And at some point you have to sit and go like, okay, is this me striving to be excellent?
Do I need it? Do I need it?
Yes, do I need this? Or whose story is running my life? What programming is running my life? I do not know if my question is making sense.
Making a lot of sense, because I have to tell you, it has for me 3 components. First, the parents component. Very often people say, my parents were saying this to me and they did this damage and that damage. I always remind myself and my clients that parents did what they could do best, with the capacities, with the upbringing, with their own emotional intelligence that they had. If they could do better, they would do better. And we leave them in the past. Second is, they did maybe wrong to us, but it's our job to heal. And that's the heavy part in therapy. When I meet people and they're like, but I want my parents to pay me back. And I have to say, sometimes I want my parents to pay me back something that they didn't do right for me. But I know it's not possible. I have to heal. I have to calm down those voices, those comparisons. Sometimes I do it well, sometimes I'm not doing it well. As I said, that when I was studying, I was trying to do the best possible paper, the best possible marks. So sometimes it's not working. But it's our job to recognize that what they put was the best intention of their time and their capacities, but it may not fit me. And we as adults have the choice to not follow that voice. Again, my parents thought that I would be best at international relations, and they were, and I did a good job running a think tank, doing a lot of paper studies, and I loved trade, foreign trade. So I had a lot of interest that they would encourage me to develop. But my heart was with art, and my heart was with psychology. And it took me a while to arrive that, yes, I can do everything great, which is a little bit an overstate, or a lot of an overstate, but I can enjoy many things, and I can live the life that my parents envisioned for me. But there is something in my stomach that says, you have another path, and you can follow, and you can risk of being this not very supported or misunderstood. You will be fine as long as you do. It's not easy to do it. The same with voices. Whatever they say, comparisons, it's not easy to get rid of them. It's not a one day or a few months operation. But at the same time, we have a choice. And if we are aware of what's put in us and how it's not working for us, we have the right to say, thank you very much for what you gave me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I want to choose now for myself. And that, I think, also for many diplomatic spouses, again, sorry, I'm coming back to my topic very often, the system tells them this is what a good spouse is. Sometimes the partner says, this is what I expect from you. But my question to them is, this is your life too. How do you want to live that life? Considering all the environments, considering all the voices, all the peer pressure, all the best, spouses of the year. How do you want to live that life? And that's the job, heavy job, for each of us, to find that voice and to find that meaning for us.
Yeah. How can spouses, diplomatic spouses, the diplomats, be supportive of their spouses?
Very much so. They can, and actually, I would say that without their support, without diplomats' support, there will be no peace for the spouses, because there is that much you can do yourself in growing and adapting and finding a meaning. If your partner says to you things like, well, I took you to this beautiful place. Why don't you adjust? Why aren't you happy? Why, why are you not adjusting well? If they have that kind of attitude, it will be very bad on the spouse. And some diplomats have that attitude, and unfortunately, it does make their partners very unhappy. At the same time, majority of diplomats really care about their partner who follows them on a posting, and they really want to have a joint fun experience. So I'm also starting to do training for diplomats on what's happening to the partner, on how the partner experiences that side of life, which you cannot see, you cannot read about it in books, you cannot really understand how the spouse is affected. So I'm trying to explain to diplomats, because they can talk to foreign ministries and they can explain more support that the spouse may need, how the family is feeling. And actually, quite a lot of diplomats, the young diplomats, they do advocate on behalf of their partner, and they do try to support their partners in this difficult transition that the spouses are going through. So I see a lot of improvement, and I do hope that younger diplomats will enjoy the postings and at the same time help their partners enjoy them more. I can see very good signs.
Okay. So what happens when retirement hits? So, because I'm sure there's a retirement age, right?
Yes.
For diplomats, like 60 or 65.
It depends on a country.
Yes.
Every country has a different
So
age.
assuming then, the diplomat gets to 60 years and now, we are done. And obviously maybe there's no opportunity to renew because that's the law, the constitution of whichever country. Then what happens? Do you settle somewhere and look at this spouse as a stranger if you are not fully present? Or is it like life 2.0?
I think here it's very easy to generalize, but it will not be true.
Okay.
So I would say every couple is very different.
Okay.
And that's a very good point to remember, because we do ask partners, very often I ask partners, how do you want even that part of your life to take place? Because very often, if couple is strong before the posting, on a posting, very likely they will have a great retirement period. I would say that the challenge is not with the spouse that much, but with the diplomat, because the diplomats are used to high velocity, a lot of visibility, a lot of activity, a lot of interviews, a lot of public events, and then the retirement is usually like a lot less. So some of them I ask questions when I meet diplomats who are approaching retirement age. I'm asking, what's your plan for after? Like, what are your interests? Can you write books? Can you travel the world? Can you do something meaningful? Because 60-something is not the time to relax. It's not the time to kind of calm down and do nothing. And very often, diplomats are very active people. So the question is, how will they keep themselves busy after? And I have seen some retired diplomats, and those who have a lot of passions, they just continue with those passions. And then the spouse has their own passion, and then they try to match it together and have a fulfilled life, even with the retirement. Those who don't have much passions and only focus on diplomacy, very often they are the diplomats who struggle. And then, of course, the spouse is sometimes like, may have a lot more on her or his plate, and then there is a mismatch. But then again, every couple is so different, and I would say that the question is, how is the couple at the beginning? How do they go through those postings? Does it bring them closer?
Yeah.
And I have seen many couples who were brought very close to each other.
Yeah.
And the couple bloomed, and then I saw couples that dissolved. And I have to say that the divorce rate among the diplomats is quite high. So the pressure of the environment and the pressure of the setting is so high, and the velocity of life and the visibility and pressure. So very often the pressure on the couple is too much.
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of effort from both sides, not just from the spouse or just the diplomat, from the both, to keep that couple not just surviving, as I said, but blooming and arriving at the retirement. Because retirement, in Europe, retirement is not the dead end. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, and very often many people use it as that time. You know, some people can do it in their 40s of revising. Are the parents' schemas or ideas good for us? But some people do it when they arrive to their 60s. They're like, okay, I lived that life, I achieved so much, I'm proud of myself, but what do I want to do with my life now when I can do everything I want? When I have the money, when I have experience, when I have lived, I achieved, I had the biggest this and that, all the medals. Now, what do I want? So it's also a good time for the diplomats and spouses.
Yeah, if they choose to see it that way. Let's speak about your art. I read that you trained under a great master in Ukraine, and I've seen your paintings. I mean, they're world class. How has art been, first of all, why art for you? Because you mentioned it, you referred to it. Your parents, yes, they wanted you to do or to study international relations, and deep down you're artist, psychologist, but still it has all worked for, you know, it has, the outcome is beautiful. So, but art, you didn't let that slide. You've always been an artist. So talk to me about your art.
I would say I was always an abstract artist, because I remember myself drawing something when I was maybe 5 or 7. And my parents would look at it and they would be like, we don't understand what's this. And that was the first kind of gap between us, because they did like classical art and they did like impressionists, and they would try to, they were enjoying art and they wanted me to enjoy art. So they did take me to all these museums and they tried to instill it in me. And that was part of probably my family's culture, just to be surrounded by art. So it wasn't like a special event, but it was something that would penetrate your life, and you would be visually very fascinated. Whether it's heavy art like Mark Roscoe, would it be impressionists that are light and airy, but that background was in me, and I did like to paint when I was a child. But somehow, in my family, it was not, I wouldn't say encouraged to be an artist, but when I told my father once back in the years that maybe I should quit my international relations and I become a full-time artist, he said, yeah, but you can do it as a hobby. So he didn't take, it's not that he didn't believe that I was a good artist. He brought probably the biggest crowd to my first art exhibition. He was like, this is my daughter, see her picture. So he was very proud of me. But at the same time, somehow it was considered as a job, not a full-time job. Even if they had a lot of artists, friends, sculptors, painters, and they would respect these people, they would love the products, but somehow for me, they wanted me to have a serious profession. So art was always with me in some form, and I would be fascinated with different artists in different periods of my life. I cannot say that being an artist, of course it's a feeling. Now when I create with a different medium and I'm trying to grow in a different direction, I'm still an artist, but I am not earning through art at the moment. I am not thinking of exhibitions. I am more exploring what's inside me. I was very productive in Thailand in the time of Corona, when COVID started, and the whole life shut down, so nothing was happening socially. I had a beautiful workshop. I would go and I would spend days painting and listening to music, looking at big artists to get inspiration. That helped me uncover, because art needs time. Art needs also space. It needs to be felt. It needs to be allowed to happen. And in my then life, if COVID wouldn't happen, I would not have space for art.
Okay.
So I was blessed that that period of slowness happened, and I could allow art and the colors I have seen in Asia, all the beautiful nature, it all was sinking into me. And then when I could pause my life, literally put my life on pause, I could create. So at the moment, I would say that art is a thinner layer of my life. I still do certain things, and I'm exploring new mediums. I was always an oil painter, but now I'm exploring acrylics. The jury is still out if I'm the person who would use acrylics for a long time. I do a lot with pencil, and I also do a lot with watercolor inks, and that fascinates me because it also opens some layers in me that I didn't know I have. So I'm actually doing more exploration rather than creation for showing to public.
Okay.
And I like that stage quite a lot.
Like it's personal to you.
Allowing to explore myself through art.
Yes. So as we say goodbye, this is a camera you look at. And, you know, this is a podcast, so people have access to it from anywhere in the world, diplomats or not. So based on your work as a psychologist and therapist for diplomat spouses and now diplomats themselves, those watching, and when we say diplomats, we don't just mean like the ambassador.
Absolutely.
It's everybody who's been posted.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm assuming like people at the UN.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Them too.
Yes,
Absolutely.
expatriates. You know.
Expatriates.
Have been the same. Yes. So this is where you encourage and speak to them, because those are the people you're currently serving now. Before I ask you my very last question, and also how they can reach you, and know how to reach you.
You can find me through the website. I will be posting a lot of useful materials, because we have to admit there is a big shortage of information about what's happening to diplomatic spouses and how to deal with all the challenges and all the gains and all the losses that the diplomatic life brings. And I have to say that the most important message I have for the spouses is to remember that the setting that you are put in is not easy. So try not to be critical on yourself and allow yourself to reach out for support. It can be a therapist, it can be a friend, it can be someone. Don't stay with the challenges on your own. And if we are to work together, I would say we would start with the number one thing, which is self-compassion. Because this is the ground that will help you whatever challenges this life brings, whatever losses this life brings. Because I want you to learn how to be your own friend and how to support yourself, how to also look for people who can support you in countries you have never been, in settings you have never been, and also how to build the link with your partner, how to be as a team on a posting, rather than opposing partners who are fighting for power. I want you to enjoy this experience, because it is a journey of a million gains. And I want you to be able to enjoy it. And at the same time, I want to be there for you when you are going through the losses, because they will come. The good news is you can go through that, and you can live a full life, even if you decide to follow a diplomat.
You almost wish someone did for you what you're doing for them. Yeah.
I have to say that that's what many of spouses I work with, they say to me if they are not on the first posting but down the road.
Yeah.
And I remember myself 12 years ago.
Yeah.
when I started. There were so many questions and there were no answers. And I'm very happy that I could put together all the answers, because I think that these people deserve a good life and fulfilling life. And yes, I sometimes say back to myself back then, there was no help. You've done very well, and you helped a lot of spouses on the way, and you learned a lot from other spouses on the way as well, because we do share with each other, we do try to support each other. And I have to say, I am happy for the new spouses, because they have me, they have my colleagues who are starting to work with the topic. So there will be more support to them.
Any regrets, Miss Olga?
That's a very good question, but to which I don't have a very fast answer. Not planting that magnolia. And that's literally and metaphorically. And I will leave you at that.
I understand both. I understand both.
I hope you do.
No, I do. I understand both. I was about to ask, until you said metaphorically, I was about to say, oh, but it would have grown with you not there. But then the minute you said, it clicked. I see that. I hear you. Well, thank you. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for healing humans, and thank you for, I know there's many diplomat spouses who have their lives easier now because you're here and you belong now. What is home to you, by the way?
Kenya. I have one big home, which is Ukraine, and that's not going to change in the capital, in Kyiv. This is where I come from. And that's a home where I will always come back to, despite wars, despite all the heaviness that is now taking place in my country. But Kenya is my second home here. But I have to be honest, I leave a piece of my heart in every place I live. And now I'm happy to say that I am in Kenya and this is my home.
This is home. Well, we're happy to have you home.
Thank you, thank you. I feel very good here.
And thank you for coming today and making time for us. And you who is watching, thank you for having tuned into our podcast. This is What's Your Story Africa. Do me a favor and just subscribe to this channel, like and share. I had to cram that. I rarely say that. But like and subscribe and share this with anybody who you feel it will be of benefit to. And Miss Olga doesn't just work with diplomat spouses, but also she's a therapist, she's a psychologist. And if you want her services, then yes, her website is coming up. But she's also on social media. Yes, on Facebook and Instagram. I think I've seen on both of those. And so reach out and just, get that thing going. Don't die with it inside. Until the next conversation, I'm Catherine Mwangi, and goodbye.